So I'm so excited to welcome everyone here. This is our first Technovation mentor support session. We are really excited to begin this series. Of course, we have mentors from all over the world. So this is our live series. So this is like I said, the first session. It's about getting started. We'll talk about preparing for your first meeting, finding a team, and hearing from you all about what you're excited for, what you're nervous for, so we can help provide resources through the season. The next in the live series is going to be in February on the 26th, and that's going to be tech time. So students and mentors are going to be invited to these sessions, and we'll have some coding boot camps to help girls get started building some apps and using AI. And those will be longer boot camps. As you can see, that session is over an hour long, and we'll try and focus in a couple different languages. So that way, once you guys have worked with your teams and picked what you're going to, how you're going to solution for your issue using either a mobile app or AI technology, you can then get a little extra support in kicking off the designs of those technologies. The next session is going to be in March on the 23rd, and that's going to be all about motivation, helping your team to continue working through the season, to not get discouraged when certain parts of the curriculum may be a little bit more difficult. And helping the team to actually get on their student platform on the team profile and submitting that project to the competition for review. So in the chat, if you guys, or we have 72 people now, this is awesome. So if you want to write in the chat and just tell us, why you've joined Technovation, it can be a sentence, it can be a little bullet point, just to get an idea of what people are feeling in this mentor community, what brought you here. Awesome. I see we have a fresh mentor who just joined, which is exciting. And we have Gulnoza, who's excited, went to Scotland to study information technology and got into Technovation. I'm so glad. Working for a better world. Awesome. So were you guys able to enter the Padlet? I see. Oh yeah, awesome. I see a bunch of people, 17 excited to find a team, 7 people still nervous. That's totally fine. We're going to go through that process today. Ideation, a lot of people are excited. A couple people are nervous. We'll talk about where you can find some resources to help with ideation. Project management, awesome. 22 people are excited. That's great. 4 are nervous. No worries. That means we will also go over that, point you to where you can get some more support. We are equal on app development and equal on working with AI. That is totally to be expected, that we would have a group that's nervous about coding and AI, and a group that has some background and is excited. And I encourage you guys to write in our mentor Slack channel, and write to me as well. That way you can ask questions and leverage the expertise that some people have in this group for coding and for working with AI. Similarly with the pitch video. And for those of you that are new, we do send those newsletters out just about every other week. In those newsletters, we'll send out tips for the specific part of the curriculum that you're likely to be addressing. So along with that season timeline. So you'll get some tips on how to create a video when that time comes. Awesome. Creating a business or user adoption plan. That's only going to be for the senior team is the business plan. The junior team is the user adoption plan. And the beginner team doesn't have as the same sort of structure for having to do competitor research. So it'll be different depending on what age group you're working with. And that's all laid out. Thank you so much for answering this Padlet. This is really going to help us think about what to talk to you guys about. And feel free to add. I see some people have comments here. So now let me jump back to our slideshow, and we'll do a really quick part of just the season overview. This will go pretty fast. So here is our season calendar. I'm sure you guys have seen it in the mentor training and in some newsletters if you started receiving them already. So we are here at just the end of January. So we recommended that you start around January 10th. And if you haven't been able to find a team yet, that is okay. this is still, we still have girls that are signing up. We started a little later this year than normal because we did a lot of upgrades to the curriculum and to the platform. So you'll notice there are still teams signing up, students signing up, mentors signing up. And the milestone really for January into mid-Feb is going to be to identify a problem to solve and then start researching that problem and thinking about different ways that you can approach it with the team. So that's going to be that ideation bit. The curriculum is really going to be your strongest resource here. I see that somebody asked in the chat, do mentors get to learn some of the tech stuff? Mentors get to learn all of this as much as you want to invest your time. We have some mentors that come in and they do more of a hands-off approach in sort of project managing, helping to set up the agenda for each meeting that the girls have and let the girls take it away. That usually works mostly the best for older girls if that's going to be your mentoring style. And then we also have some mentors that really want to get involved and learn alongside the girls. We really do encourage that. The curriculum leads you through a lot of different training resources, videos, little projects to do to help you learn coding. And we have extra resources for that you can find in student newsletters, mentor newsletters, and on our resource page that we have that's built for mentors specifically. I see that Ananda also wrote, I'd like to work with a team in India and are located in Portland, Oregon. That's totally fine as long as you can find a good time for you to meet with a team. The way you'll search for that, again, is on the search function on your mentor profile. When you're looking to find a team, you can just search by the area in India that you'd like to look for. And if there's girls there that are still looking for mentors, you can request to be a part of their team and see if they'll be able to get back to you. And then you'll be able to set your schedule from there with them to make sure that you have good meeting times. I see Kevin also asked, does the curriculum this year have resources for learning AI? Yes, it does. And we just made some updates to our mentor guide, which you can find on our mentor resource page. That should be linked right on your mytechnovationchallenge.org account. That'll also be sent in newsletters just to make sure you guys have multiple angles where you're getting that link, and I can send it out to you today as well. So just moving a little bit more through this calendar, in February, you're going to be working to write your mission statement with the students. So having identified the problem and how you're going to try and solve it, writing out that mission statement, making a paper prototype, or starting to code your app and gathering your data sets for it. So that's going to be all led by the curriculum. So don't worry if all of that sounds kind of confusing to you and you're not sure what it means to make a paper prototype. That's something that the curriculum will lead you through. So just make sure that you're kind of proofreading or going through that curriculum before you actually meet with the girls, so you have an idea of what each week will bring. And the curriculum is batched out by weeks, so you can plan each meeting according to the curriculum. In March is when registration will close. So if you have folks you want to bring on as a co-mentor, make sure that they actually sign up and request the team before March 25th. That's when registration will close. So there is when we're really going to be focusing on coding your app. The senior division will be working on their business plan, the junior division on that user adoption strategy. So just thinking about how to actually get folks to use the app. Will it make money? How will you fund building it? And that's for the older girls to consider. The younger girls that are in the beginner division won't actually have to do that. Registration for students will close at the same time, March 25th. It closes for everyone at that time. So if you have girls that still need to sign up, just make sure they do it before then. And then by April is when we're going to be encouraging everyone to submit. April 26th is going to be the deadline. So you're going to want to get in as much of the submission materials as you can. And submissions will open early, so you'll be able to chunk out when you actually complete certain parts of the submission requirements. That's when you'll make your pitch video and demo videos as well. And then once you submit, we have judging. And all of the apps that come through, we have volunteers that log on and actually review them, give feedback, give scores, and that helps us determine who are going to be the finalists for our World Summit. And that'll be by division. So we'll have finalists in senior, junior, and beginner divisions. Great. So just quickly to go over some of the mentor resources, I mentioned the curriculum. Really use this as a basis for a lot of your meetings. You can access those curricula from your dashboard. When you click on more information, should be an easy way to just go through, look week by week, and plan out your agendas for the students. The mentor resource page has a lot of different little tips and tricks. It has a mentor guide, some tips for the curriculum, FAQs, and a couple other resources like icebreakers for some of your meetings. So definitely recommend checking that out. The Slack community, again, look at all the people we have here, about 80 people here today. So, use the expertise of the mentors around you. I'll definitely share the presentation, with all of you guys at the end of the session, so you can access this. And then the other thing we haven't talked about yet are chapter ambassadors. So not every location has a chapter ambassador, but many do. And this is someone who runs the program on the ground in different countries and regions within countries. So that's somebody who is recruiting and supporting local students and also mentors. So that's going to be the best person if you're having trouble reaching your team, or you might want extra support and understanding how to communicate with them in some way. Chapter ambassadors can be really great for helping with that. They are volunteers too. So I know sometimes people are, wondering, why didn't they get back to me? I sent my email today, but just remember that they're volunteering as well. So they'll get back to you, as soon as they can. And they're working hard to support students and mentors in their regions. We're really grateful for their support. So now I want to introduce first Britta. Britta is an awesome volunteer who's worked with us through Shopify in Canada and has been really great. You might recognize her from some videos that we're posting out of our Girls Are campaigns. And so I'd like to invite her to share a little bit about her experience and what it was like getting started with Technovation for those that are new to us.
Yeah, well, this will be my third year actually doing Technovation. And I've been lucky enough to actually work with the same team throughout the whole time. So the first year I was paired up with them through my, through the ambassador, my local ambassador. And then we were able to keep in touch, and the girls actually asked me back last year. And when they finished last year, they said, hey, we'd actually like to keep going forward with this idea. Can we do this next year as well? And so we're actually this year moving on to kind of revamping our idea a little bit and actually using a different technology so they can learn something new instead of using what they've used the last 2 years. So it's been very cool. So next year I'll actually be in the shoes of having to find a new team because they're in grade 12 this year, but also means there's different challenges this year that I'll be facing. So every year is different. Obviously the first year was 2020, and we know what happened in 2020. So we had to shift going online partway through the year, which was really challenging. 2021, we obviously had an understanding that we'd be mostly remote, although the girls were back and forth, and it was still a pandemic, and that was challenging on them and challenging to make sure that we meet up. But at least the structure was still there. And then this year they're facing new challenges with being in the process of applying through universities, as well as trying to do all this. So I'm trying to be a little bit mindful and flexible with them. And that's really key, being flexible. When it came to finding a team though, like we've always had a really good time and always been matched up with a I've been matched up with a co-mentor. My co-mentor has changed every year, although this year I don't have a co-mentor yet, but that's okay. We are still trying to figure out who from the original team is interested in going through, just because of the deadlines that they've got. They're not really sure how much time they will have, although there is still the core team that's there, which is good. And yeah, what else do you want me to talk about? I'm like trying to give you an overview of my experience.
I think if anyone has questions, feel free to write them in the chat. And then I know I have some questions for you, Britta.
Yeah.
Thinking back to your first year, like when you just joined Technovation, and so it looks like someone just asked that too, like your first contact with the girls.
Yes.
How did that go? How did you actually get matched to the team for your first year?
So the way that we've done it at Shopify and through the local, we have like a local ambassador who collects information, gets people's interest before the actual start date. they get a bunch of teams from the schools and they work through it that way. And so it was a really easy matchup in the first year, which is why I will say, like, I'm very lucky in that sense. And I know not every place has that same luck in terms of like just basically being given a team. My first contact with them was in person the first time, which was really great. But the second year, my first contact with them, because we did decide to go remote, two of the girls were from the original team that I already knew and had a relationship with, and two of the girls were from a different team who I didn't have a relationship with. And so that was an interesting approach, where it's like meeting them for the first time online, because especially when you've already got an established relationship with two of them, I had to make sure that there was like a good balance going on, where I was still like learning the new girls without like boring the girls, or like learning about the new girls without boring the girls who knew me already. And so that was a fun balance to kind of like play around with, but it was pretty good and pretty easy. And I think just being open to them, like I also spoil my girls a little bit by allowing them to like contact me anytime they want. Mostly because that's the relationship I would have wanted. So I'm very, very good at trying to provide that to them, but that's not expected of you. So don't worry, like you can set boundaries, you're allowed to do that. And I usually like right around the time of like things moving into like the difficult time, trying to like send them a little surprise. And so I did that the first year, which kind of created a stronger bond, where I had gone away for a week and came back and brought them gifts, and they weren't really expecting that. And it was all personalized gifts based on what they had told me. And then the second year, our team name was Frog Hats. And so I bought them all frog hats from like the dollar store or whatnot and gave that to them. And just that little bit of like, and I wrote them all personalized notes, just saying what a wonderful contribution they are to the team based on what specifically they did. And I called out specific things that they've done on the team that made really well. So it doesn't have to be monetized. I know that I've given you examples of monetization, but just making those connections by being like, wow. And so that's more of like an after you get to know them, but making sure each one of them speaks up, has a voice, asking to call them out. Another thing I started doing that actually I should mention, because it was really, really good, was I asked the girls to tell me every week something that they're really proud of that happened this week. So that was kind of our icebreaker every day, was like, hey, what are you proud of that happened? And it was neat kind of seeing them go through, because like a lot of times it was like, hey, I'm proud I got this thing done that I was supposed to get done, or I'm proud that like I ended up getting a much higher result on my test than I wanted or than I was expecting.
I'm interested in the way that you're talking about that balance of
Yes.
understanding what kind of students and different students might need, whether it's because you know some or you don't. Someone asked you, do you suggest us being like a teacher or being like a part of their team?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I always felt like I was a big sister more than anything else. I know there's a huge age gap between me and them, but it's still more of like a, hey, I'm a resource for you if you ever need to. And there were a couple of times where one of them would be having a bad week and I'd message them privately and be like, hey, like, is everything okay? If you want to talk about it, like, feel free. I think the nice thing about not being a teacher, at least in my case, is that they don't have to, like, teachers tend to have to be marking. There's like a curriculum, there's like a set relationship that is there. And that can be a good thing or that can be a bad thing. And by being an outsider, you're able to kind of like come in and say like, hey, this is like, I can be what you need me to be. And mind you, like teachers, if you are a teacher and you're doing this, like you are still able to fill that gap. I'm not saying that you're not, but that was an advantage I found, was that I could like talk badly with them about school and how like, oh, like school's tough and like, oh, this teacher is giving me grief. And it was like, oh, like that's like, maybe you should, and then I'm able to give it like a different approach, be like, maybe you should try to approach it this way. So you're able to give advice, but like as an outsider, which was nice. Yeah, I'm like, I think being more of a friend and being more part of the team was beneficial for me and how I liked to work. So obviously keeping them on track though is something you still need, that like, hey, let's keep going. Like, can we get these deadlines? But what's keep in mind that because if there are a larger group, like I know you can have groups the size of one if you wanted to, but if they are a group of like 4, usually there's enough pressure within the group because they're all friends to get it done, because they don't want to disappoint the other girls in the group. So you don't always have to be that person who's like, hey, let's get this done, which is nice.
And it makes sense too if you have a co-mentor that can help you sort of balance out. You can be the big sister role and someone else can play more of the teacher role. It totally depends on what your personality is too. So
Also, like realizing their strengths and weaknesses is also really important. So that's something that actually we talked about at the beginning when I first met them all. I asked like what they were interested in, like were they like, because some were much more interested in the design approach and like UX, and others were much more interested in doing the coding. And so having a good understanding at the beginning as to like what levels they want to be involved in each of the steps was really important. Because then you can play on their strengths and play on their interest and play on their passion and their motivation too, right?
yeah, that's a great tip for the first meeting too. And I see some questions about, what do I do once I get a team? I'll just answer that question briefly. But when you get a request from a team, you can accept it on the platform and then you'll get their emails, the student emails. We do have a form that you can send along with your first email to the team. So that first email should be, or I don't know, Britta, did you have a first email that went out to a team or did you to schedule like meeting with them in person?
So the way that it was set up was not through email initially. We did get the emails that once we all knew. Actually, I think we just had to share each other's emails because we had to determine whether or not like how we were going to be communicating. And so it ended up being through email for the most part with them. And I will say that I still do email a few of the girls this way as well. But I also keep in mind of like what is the frictionless way for them to communicate, and I've latched onto that platform, which is Instagram in their case. Um, but yeah, like it's we do meet over a Google Meet, which usually means I need their email, and I found that the best way of like having actual face-to-face conversations with them and chatting with them, and also giving them time because of the circumstance in the pandemic and not getting a chance to like hang out after school like they would usually, giving them time to also have that moment and get it out of their system to like chat and hang out and stuff like that is always good.
Yeah.
But I think like meeting for the first time over a video call, if possible, is like kind of one of the better ways of getting a more personal experience with them.
Cool. I think that's great advice. Once you get that acceptance to the team, then that's when you can send that first email. Do a really great intro of yourself. Also, for safety purposes, we do have a form it's a parental mentor communication form that goes out, and you can ask the students to give it to the parents. And that allows them to check off sort of what Britta was just talking about, what they use to communicate. So they may already be using WhatsApp or iMessage or email or a host, any variety of things. That form is going to help them explain that and their parents to explain that. So everyone knows how you're communicating and feels safe and comfortable. So I definitely recommend sending out that email, including that form, and then get the schedule for that first meeting. And as Britta just said, try and have it be that video call meeting. So that way you can really kind of get to know each other. And Britta, if you want to just say, someone asked you, what was the hardest part of this experience? If you could speak to that, maybe just how you overcame the difficult parts.
Yeah, I think sometimes as a mentor, like I know my personality type, I try to like help as much as possible. And sometimes I have to just let them work through it and them to do it instead of stepping in and providing and keep I want to keep them on a path, but I want to make sure that they're choosing that path, right? And that they're motivating. And so sometimes it's hard to not be like, hey, I don't think that's the way you should go, or like, hey, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And so try not to direct too much, I think, is like one of the bigger challenges that I deal with. And I kind of talk about this I don't know if it'll be showcased in the video diaries or not, but when I was filming them, I was talking a little bit about like making sure that I'm there, but I'm not hands-on all the time. Like I have to when they need it and they need to troubleshoot, I can be there, but it's got to be coming from them. This has got to be their project. And so taking their ideas and suggesting potential ways to expand those ideas is a good idea, but not providing an idea, for example. So yeah, I think sometimes that's the bigger challenge, is like when you see that they're like so close to gold in some way, you're like, okay, like let's try to like narrow this down, and like let's make sure you learn on these experiences. I can't just be building this for you. So
Awesome. That's great advice. Thanks so much, Britta. And we had a bunch of great questions. So we also have another mentor here, Annie from Intuitive. And so excited to have you here. Wow. So we'd love to hear from you also.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie. Not too long ago, I was a high school student participating in Technovation. And I'm now working, but I do try my best to stay involved as a mentor and a judge. I'm so excited to speak to you guys today about the ideation process, because that is without a doubt the part of Technovation that has made the greatest impact on my life. So as we know, Technovation challenges teams of girls to identify and solve problems in their own communities. My Technovation mentor did a great job of guiding my team through that thought process of how you identify and solve pressing problems. And what I realized through my experience with Technovation was that I really cared that what I was doing, for my job in my future was making a positive impact on the world. And so it really mattered to me what problem I spent my life working to solve. I wanted to focus on solving problems related to human health and well-being through technology. And so now at Intuitive Surgical, I'm a FPGA engineer working on firmware and hardware for the Da Vinci surgical robot. Okay, so as a mentor, the ideation process is, it basically helps the girls on your team find a problem that they care about. So I found that this problem-solving mindset is very useful. It's useful far beyond this one, competition that they're doing. It's something that the girls can bring with them and guide them through the choices that they make in the future. Coming up with a good idea for this project can be a little daunting, and it might take your time a little longer than you might think. That's okay. One of the most important parts of this competition is the idea itself. The idea that you come up with at the very beginning will motivate everyone to continue working hard for the next few weeks. So it's very important. This idea is the backbone of your app. Once you have a good idea, it's much easier for your team to make a good pitch video. It's much easier for them to write their problem statement. So this will, having something concrete and that they like will make it easier down the line. So after your team is formed, like Britta said, you should spend some time getting to know them. And I wanted to highlight something she said. It's really helpful to make sure they feel comfortable speaking their mind and being open to you and to their classmates or to their teammates. So after that, it's time to decide on a problem to work on. It's possible that someone on your team already has a good idea. Ask them, does anybody have any ideas? If someone has a good idea and everybody feels comfortable pursuing it, then just go for it. I think that's really great because it's important that the girls feel ownership over the app that they're making. Like someone just said, remember that it's their project and not ours, right? So it's great if they come up with the idea, if they feel ownership over their idea, and that ownership empowers them to be curious, to ask questions, to keep developing further ideas, and to get feedback on their efforts instead of just waiting for you to give them directions or to answer their whatever questions they have. That ownership really motivates them to be proactive. So there's also the case where nobody on your team has an idea they want to pursue. So there are some problems in this world that are bigger than others, and some that are more pressing than others. And I really love that the Technovation curriculum points to that list of UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think that's a great list. It's a great place to start if you don't have an idea of what to do. So go through this list with your team, one item at a time until you find something that resonates with the girls. maybe ask what everybody knows about each sustainable development goal. I feel like when I was in middle school or high school, I wasn't really that aware of what was going on in the world. Um, and whether or not the girls on your team realize it, it's possible that a number of these issues listed affect the girls in their local community. So try to spend some time to talk about ways in which a mobile app might be able to affect any sort of positive impact on the problems that resonate with your team. And then the step after identifying a problem is to start conducting some research. It's likely that during the Technovation season, these girls will ask you questions and you don't know the answer. And as a mentor, that's fine. There's no need for you to know everything. And there's no need for the girls to think that you know everything. Instead, I would suggest that you show them how you deal with not knowing something. That's a very useful skill to have. If you're missing a skill that you think would be helpful for your team, maybe find someone in your network, someone, email your chapter ambassador to see if they might know a good reference for that skill. You could also maybe set up a time for that expert reference to video chat with your team. Or you could show the girls how to search online for a reliable source of information. I feel like most of us, if we don't know something, we just go to the nearest search engine and type it in. So that's how we find information, and it's good for them to know that. Teach them some important things like this source should be reliable. You should check the domain name. Who wrote the website, who was the author. Teach them that they should find more than one source for the facts that they're claiming, right? Just basic things that would be good for conducting research. And I hope this gets your team started.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. It's you two both, Britta and Annie. It's been an amazing combination of information you've been able to share. I hope everyone's found it incredibly valuable to just hear a little bit about the way that this process works at the beginning of a season from folks that have actually been through it. Again, I think reach out via Slack if you're struggling with how to motivate your team. Reach out to your chapter ambassador with some, to ask some questions about how to motivate the team. If you are at a workplace, if you're at a place like Shopify or Intuitive or any other company, or even, a school where other teachers may be involved, or a parent group, start a little Slack channel and go back and forth with a smaller community of mentors that might be in your area. Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.